and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program we have a musician named Cav from Blitz Vega. He was in a band with Andy Rourke of The Smiths, and we dig a lot into the music that they made together. They have an album that's coming out on April 26th called Northern Gentlemen. It's really a solid album. I really recommend checking it out. But we dig really deep into the album. We lost Andy recently, and we'll talk about to Cav about kind of his feelings about that and kind of how he's processing through the loss of his friend and bandmate, and kind of picking up from that and finishing this album, getting it out into the world, which is what Andy had wanted. So a really touching story. We'll get into that in just a moment. Before we do, I have some explaining to do. Now, it's been a little while since I've done an episode of Concert Pipeline. It's been a month, and I don't take these sort of breaks very often. It's really just winter. And then after duck hunting season ends at the end of January, then I'm back into it and doing interviews again. And I did a couple, but I realized I took a 4-week break, and I'll just put it out there. I was really busy with work and other things in life, and didn't have interviews come across my desk that seemed like I had time or bandwidth or interest in doing them. And it's always this thing that'll always be with me, I feel like, though. So I don't know that I'm going to stop it. I'm just going to let it be natural as to when it actually happens. And so that's happening this week, as I had this interview with Blitz Vega, and I have a couple other interviews right around the corner as well. So lots of stuff coming out over the next couple weeks, and then again, we'll let it be just what it is. That's how I'm going to roll with it. And if I get interviews lined up, great. If I don't, then it'll be there when I get the interviews. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's been super busy, and I haven't been able to slow down, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I love me some Concert Pipeline. I love having these conversations with artists and digging into their music and getting to hear their stories. It's just so much fun. So I'm excited to be back and doing it again over my coming interviews. So nothing else really too pressing to report right now, really. I'm going to be getting my son out fishing and trying to get him outdoors. That's kind of always a struggle to get him to do different things, but he's starting to not be as resistant and just accept whatever I got lined up, which is great. I've had some challenges with some of the activities that I've been lining up for him to do, and that's kind of annoying and frustrating, but it is what it is. So not much to be done about that. But yeah, we got some music. We got some music news coming at the end of the podcast as well. So stay tuned for that, as well as who's coming up on the program in the coming weeks. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and bring in Cav from Blitz Vega to the program.
Can you hear me?
I can. Cav, how you doing?
Right. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very good. You down in LA right now?
I'm not. I'm back in England. So back in LA in a few weeks.
Yeah, you go back and forth between LA and England. Like you have two homes. Like how much time do you spend in both?
Well, I was mainly based in LA for a long time until COVID. So I've been back in England since sort of the pandemic, really. But I still seem to spend most of my time there that I've been living in England. So
yeah. And how's the weather in England right now? How are things?
Well, that's why I'm wearing my bright glasses, because it makes everything sunny. But yeah, no, it's nice and cold and dark. So that's fine by me. I love it. So I love both. I like the sun, but I also like the night sky as well. So yeah.
How often do you get out to the States?
a lot. So I'm back and forth from the States all the time. I've always spent a lot of time in the States. So yeah, I mean, last couple of years, I suppose last year I've probably spent nearly 6 months, maybe half the year. I don't know, something like that. It's like back and forth all the time. So I suppose when you add it up, it's quite a long time. But it's strange over the last couple of years because now I'm here back in the UK and I'm sort of going to LA and just kind of or just the States, New York or wherever, and just kind of you know doing my thing and then leaving kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely different after the pandemic, definitely, but and obviously it is everywhere. But yeah, I mean, I suppose all the major cities have changed slightly. So yeah, it's nice to be out here in the country. I guess I'm sort of out the way of London, so I'm not even I'm just see a few foxes and badgers and stuff. That's kind of what happens around here, which is cool, which is good with me. So. How about
Yeah.
yourself? Where are you based?
Outside the Bay Area a little bit towards Sacramento
Oh, cool, cool.
In California. In
Yeah,
California. Yeah.
yeah, great, great. Yeah,
Yeah. And I've lived in California my whole life. So
yeah, cool.
haven't gone out, never been to England or anything, but I have in-law family from there, like Essex and that sort of thing. So
Oh, cool, nice,
yeah, yeah. Well, we're going to dig into some Blitz Vega. So, first off,
cool.
want to say, condolences for your loss because I'm sure, kind of, as you kind of had this project, there's been a lot of emotions and kind of stuff that you've been experiencing in the loss um, with Andy, and everything, right? So,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, yeah. And so how are you holding up at this point as you're kind of finalizing this album and kind of doing press for it, getting it out there, that sort of thing?
That's it. Really, it's because that's what he wanted, and he was so clear about it all the way through the process, but more so in the last, his last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. He really pushed that point home to me. And it was difficult to talk about it, obviously, at the time. And I probably tried to not really face up to it because I kind of thought, he'd be okay, maybe, and not to think anything else until, if something does happen. But he sort of got the point across to me to say that he really wanted the album to be released and he wanted us to tour it, and that was really important to him. And then sort of made me promise no matter what that I would do that. So that's in a weird way. Well, in a way, that's taken all. Well, it has. It's taken all my focus. So, you know, you lose a friend and somebody, people. A lot of people lose people. So it's just part of life. But I suppose, I knew Andy for 24 years. Worked with him for 7 years, and the last 7 years were so. When you're sharing everything creatively, you're in a studio together. You're constantly talking about everything. He was such a huge part of everything I did. And the strange thing is he is now as well, because every day I'm doing something that is connected to him. So it's, the music we made, we played like our first show without him 2 weeks ago in London. And that was, probably the most nervous I've been before a show. Just although I was absolutely really really wanted to get on stage so bad and just perform, play. It kind of you kind of trying to put it to the back of your mind and just trying to. I don't know. It was just it was because he was such a big part of Blitz Vega. It was his thing. It was us. Every decision, everything we did. It was like, and he felt so free in Blitz Vega. It really was. He felt like he was making and enjoying music for, just, I suppose, not the first time, but it felt as if we were going back to being kids when you first pick up an instrument, or you just want to I don't know, for me, like playing Nirvana songs when I was a kid. But you know, it was just, it was very sort of liberating a lot of the time, and so now I just focus on delivering this, just getting this music out there, and you know, if people want us to come and play, then we'll come and play, you know, and play these songs, and that's it. You know, that's kind of it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so tell me about the show that happened 2 weeks ago. Like, what was that like? How did you kind of approach it? Knowing that there's obviously this force that's absent but yet present at the same time, I'm sure, in the energy of getting out there and playing live.
Yeah, it was something that had been put off, to be really honest with you. We had the opportunity of doing stuff for quite a few months before we finally did this show. And just the idea of getting into the rehearsal room just seemed, I don't know, there was just reasons why it didn't feel right at the time. So then when this show was sort of confirmed, and it was like, you know, part of the label that I've set up, and we have like an events company. So my partners, you know, really wanted to push forward with it, and I spoke to my partner Woody on the label. And the events company. He was like, "Look, you just need to do this show. You're not cancelling this show." So, um, so then you're kind of forced to get into a rehearsal room and just do it, and so then it was just, again, just enjoying playing music again. Was so it was really, it was as if he was there all the time, you know, because you, there a lot of his parts and songs, and you find yourself drifting back to each memory before each song, and all the things, you know, things that I didn't even remember sometimes, that suddenly just, I suppose, I don't know, my brain just pulled from somewhere, and then I'd just kind of have a flashback to, you know, a certain day or conversation or something, and that was kind of nice. And then just getting on stage, it really did feel as if he was there. It was kind of strange. It was like the first song or two, just finding our way, and then we kind of felt like he was there, you know. And there's like one song we have like these tracks running, so we have like real classical strings, and there's one song where we had Andy singing backing vocals. So we decided we wanted to keep that on the song. So we kept his vocals. So when that kicked in, it was quite a, you know, it was kind of like, oh, he's actually kind of there. So we felt his presence all the way through it. And again, it was actually liberating to actually get that show over the line and, you know, do it. And then afterwards just felt really good about the fact that, yeah, we're doing the right thing here. We're performing the songs, and you know, it feels good. You know, it was just, I guess you build it up into something like this big scary thing that you're kind of like, oh, you know. But you know, it's yeah, it would just feel lucky to be able to play those songs, and you know, carry Blitz Vega on for at least this album cycle anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And would you say kind of there's a different energy when you're playing the songs live versus when you're kind of preparing and finishing up the album over the past months?
Yeah, I mean, it's I suppose the live energy is always different, and the whole idea, when me and Andy were kind of like talking about, you know, what we wanted from a band, we didn't really sort of plan things a lot, but we wanted to have that live energy. We wanted it to be, no matter what, whether there was mistakes or, you know, things. We didn't want to cover that up. We just wanted it to be as, you know, as close to from the heart in every way, whether it's lyrics or guitars, bass, drums, whatever it is. We wanted it to feel, you know, and I know things, you know, you live in, I suppose, a time when everything's so polished, and that's fine, that's totally cool. But for us, we wanted everything in there. We wanted it to just, we wanted to feel it, really, I suppose. So that's what we were trying to do, and so I'm just trying to keep that, you know, going, and that's the same with the album, because when I was going through the album, he'd actually sort of wrote his notes down, and he'd said, look, I really want this song on the record. I think this song should open the album. I think this song should end the album, you know. and there'd be times where I was sort of questioning certain lyrics and going, well, maybe I should change that, and he would be like, no, you need to keep that in. So then I went into the studio. I went into the studio only, I think, 2 days after he'd actually passed, and I was in the studio in LA, and we were just sort of trying to get there with these tracks and finish them, because I felt that the best thing to do would be to finish the album, or the mixing side of it, as close to when Andy, basically while Andy's thoughts were in my mind, and they felt quite clear, and so but then it ended up being a little too soon, so things were put off for like 2 weeks of just not going anywhere with it, and then I kind of left the States for a week or two, and then just came back at it with kind of like a fresh energy and a different outlook, and just followed what he kind of really wanted, and then it all sort of fell into place, and it sits pretty. I'm really happy with it now.
Yeah. How much of the album was Andy able to hear before he passed? Like, what's
Well,
what
all of it.
status is it? He was
Yeah,
okay.
all of it. Yeah. Pretty much the only thing that would have been that there was a couple of really tiny edits, and like a bass being turned up, or like a guitar part coming in a little sooner and stuff like that. But they were kind of, that's where he'd heard it up to. So basically, he was listening to it, gave his notes, and then that's how we finished it. So he had the whole album, and was pretty clear on what he wanted from it, So yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah. And you said you wanted you to tour it too. Like, what does that look like for playing shows ahead? Do you have anything lined up? Are you working on lining up shows?
Yeah, I think we're working. I mean, we're going to be doing a show in LA after the summer, kind of in it. It's not really a tribute, but inviting people from different bands to come and play with us and do something special. Play the album with all the different types of sort of instruments that we can't really tour with as well, and do something really special for him. And also because you see, LA as a city was so good to us. California was so good to us, to the point where we felt so comfortable in the sort of music scene there, and whether it's people who worked with us or whatever, we really, it was the perfect place to be for this project, and that's where Blitz Vega was kind of from, really, because that's where it was formed, that's where everything was recorded. So we feel that that's the best place to do it, because anywhere else it's but we'll do it in LA, and then I mean we're getting show offers coming through now. We've done this London show, so we're just going to sit down and plan that, and just the idea is exactly what Andy would say in pretty much every interview. We just want to take it on tour and play and play and play, and that's it, and that is exactly what we want to do. We want to still do that, and play these songs out for him, and that's kind of and if people come and enjoy it, then we're kind of that's cool. That'll be great.
Yeah, and you had three tours that were planned. I mean, but all had to be canceled. Was that all tied to the pandemic and the mess around there?
It was two of the tours were cancelled because of Andy's illness, and
Hmm.
because and one of the tours was cancelled because of the pandemic. So yeah, it was kind of mad. We'd started this band to be a live band, and the only thing we couldn't do was be a live band. So it was really kind of yeah, it's quite testing, but we sort of that allowed us to really focus on the studio and just record and get lost in we couldn't do anything else. So I feel that really allowed us to you know let the songs breathe in a different way. They weren't there was we were just honest with everything we did in the studio, which was cool. And I guess the tours were they were difficult because it was kind of we just start get things would get going, and so we do a couple of shows and we're like, right, okay, let's go. And then he would get some kind of situation would happen where he was unable to do the tours, and usually it would come, pretty much out the blue. So so we couldn't tell anyone as well, because he was really private. He really didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want people to know about it, because he just wanted to. He always said his key thing. He always said to me, "I just want to play bass. That's it. I want to make music, play bass, go on tour. That's it. So that was kind of all he wanted to do. So he didn't want all the other stuff that comes with it. As far as if people had found out that he was unwell. So everyone respected that, and we'd always come up with some, just reason why we couldn't do the shows.
Yeah, it's really great when, I mean, you can kind of see that too when someone doesn't like do it to kind of get all this pity and everything. They just want to enjoy the final moments. I mean, you hear this sort of things like, Norm Macdonald, no one ever knew, David Bowie, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like at
Yeah.
the end with Dark Star, his Dark Star album and everything. I mean, that was an incredible way to go.
Yeah.
And so it's great that Andy kind of did that same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just wanted to focus. I guess it's like I could understand it with him. He would always feel like really, he exactly what you said there is that he didn't want people to suddenly start focusing on the fact that, and I get that, because it would have been awful, because that's all everybody would talk about, and he wouldn't have been, he was going on a plane to the studio, after like an operation or after some, and then he'd spend like a week in the studio, and that's where he got his joy from. He'd be smiling. You didn't know that he wouldn't let you. I suppose obviously we all knew, but you weren't. You didn't have to confront it in a way, because we were in the studio and it was very normal and just kind of fun. It was always fun. There was always jokes. There was always just it was always about the music and where we're going to eat or something like that. It was just kind of something. That's all we really sort of spoke about. So really, yeah. And I'm happy now. I think back to that he did that, because he was able to. The studio was a real, place of sanctuary for him. It was a place where he could genuinely close the door, leave New York where he lived, come to LA, and just lose himself in making music that he really wanted to make. So yeah, I'm really happy when I think back to that. I didn't realize how much of a big deal that was at the time, but it kind of hits home now.
Yeah, for sure. And so the album was recorded in LA. What did you record at Abbey Road? Because I heard you did some recording there.
Yeah, so again, because we were sort of the idea was to really base stuff on live recordings as well. We did we were shooting a documentary. It didn't start off as a documentary, but it was kind of like like a log of what we were doing, and it was always being filmed from pretty much like, I suppose, after we'd come up with the band name, so maybe 2 or 3 months into the band forming. So we just sort of filmed everything, and then we decided, an opportunity came up where we were going to record in Studio 2 at Abbey Road, and it was going to be part of the filming. And so at this point, we'd realized we were actually shooting a documentary, and actually this would be cool to cut into the songs and us performing them live. And so we did. So we just went there. We did like 3 takes of each song, and we recorded it live. And so that's kind of being saved for when the documentary finally comes out, which will probably be some point next year, I should imagine. Then that recording will release that recording as part of that, maybe as a Record Store Day release or something, as a limited vinyl or something.
That's cool. And how involved are you in kind of the making of the documentary? Like, what can you tell us about what that looks like?
Yeah, we've got a few people involved, but I think really we haven't really sort of we were sort of nearly there while Andy was still here, and then since he passed, it's kind of been parts for a little bit. So I think, or I'm heavily involved, because to the point where I know exactly what he wanted. So I know that he wouldn't want to be presented in a certain way, or something isn't right with him. And even if we think it's cool, I know what he didn't. It's just like silly little things, but they're really important to people sometimes. And so being very actively involved in like pulling that all together is important, and just making sure that it's all represented correctly. And we'll see. I mean, I think the idea is to shoot it up to the point of the show we do in LA next September, October time, and then kind of then we can sort of finish it off there and go through 7 years worth of footage and try to pull something that kind of works, together.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go back to kind of the beginning. What music was on in your household when you were a kid? What did your parents listen to? What were some of those early influences?
Early influences would have been well, as a kid, there was a lot of Michael Jackson on in the house, and and then I guess my aunt, she was like I guess she was a 60s, 70s kind of rock girl, and so she had a great vinyl collection, and so I think she was traveling somewhere, or she was away for some time, so she left all her records at my parents' house, and so I wasn't allowed to touch the record player because I was too young. But my granddad would pick me up from school, so he didn't know that I wasn't allowed to touch a record player. So I'd just come home, go through her records before my parents came home from work, and I'd stick like Sergeant Pepper. I remember, was one of the first records that I'd play a lot. Sticky Fingers,
Dark Side of the Moon, also,
Exile.
right?
Yeah, Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah. And that was like, wow, that was there. And just I suppose there was just Hendrix. I remember playing Foxy Lady, and like really early on, and I remember that song coming on, and the riff and everything just completely blowing my mind. I was just like, wow. So I mean, I kind of had the bug then, and then there was like this show called Headbangers Ball on. We had it on BBC Two in the UK, and they had a show from the Ritz in New York with Guns N' Roses playing,
Mm.
and I think they'd actually bleeped out all the swearing or something, and I was so young, um, uh, and I just see these pirates walk on stage with these guitars, and I just thought, was just the coolest thing ever. And I just remember seeing like Izzy Stradlin playing, and he looked like a Rolling Stone. And obviously, I was getting into the Stones and the Beatles and all of that stuff. And I just sort of gravitated to him as a musician and thought, wow, that's cool. He's really cool. So that was kind of, I watched that, and at that point, I decided that's all I ever wanted to do. So.
It was the Guns N' Roses, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was Guns N' Roses. People are always surprised. I'm like, yeah, well, I was like a kid. Guns N' Roses came out, and they were just like, wow, what is this? And it just, completely blew my mind. But I was kind of already getting there with, a lot of the 60s, 70s stuff that I was getting into as well. So I was lucky that I found that vinyl record collection basically, or was started playing it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and you were a fan of a lot of grunge also, 90s like
Yeah.
music. And did you ever get a chance to see any of those pivotal bands live, like from back then? What were those early concerts that kind of influenced you?
So like I was again, I was too young when sort of I suppose Alice in Chains, Nirvana, bands like that, Pearl Jam were really sort of at their height. So I tried to go and see. I remember trying to go to see tours, and I wasn't allowed. My parents didn't let me. But then I saw. I went to Reading Festival, and I was in my very early teens, and with a couple of friends, and I remember Courtney Love was playing, and Mudhoney were playing, No, Pavement were playing. Sorry. No, that was no. Mudhoney were playing, and Pavement were playing. Sorry.
They're all playing.
And yeah, they're all playing. But the key to it was Neil Young played, and Pearl Jam were pretty much his backing band. And that was like probably one of the greatest moments ever. I just kind of, you know, there's Neil Young doing his thing, and he's got like Mike McCready and Stone Gossard and all those guys. They're all playing with him, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So I was completely into all of that, and then I suppose Oasis and all of those bands were coming out around that time, which then led me back to discover bands like the Stone Roses and Happy Mondays and all of those bands that I ended up working with one of them, but I discovered all these bands, and it was just it was just constant music, amazing music all the time. It just seemed endless. So yeah, that's everything that you wanted to do. Listen to music all day, play music. Just that was it. So.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned Happy Mondays. So tell me about how you went from kind of being a fan of the band to helping reform it with Shaun Ryder. Like, what did that look like, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I was young enough to not be afraid to be, do certain things. You just kind of did things without thinking about it. And I'd been one of my bands from my hometown in Leicester. We'd come out of a record deal. It hadn't worked out for us, but we were unable to release music, but we were still able to tour. So we were touring, and I'd met people like Bez. Bez had played a few shows with us. So I'd met Bez from Happy Mondays and Shaun Ryder as well. And he became really supportive of our band, and he would just tour with us. And, we were playing places like Dublin, and sometimes we'd play like a Black Grape song live. And then when I left my hometown, I moved to London. I was like 23 at this point. I started these events called Get Loaded, which were like club events, and asked Shaun Ryder to kind of host the events, and then those events took off a lot quicker than we'd actually planned. So we went from like 3 or 4 nights in a club to maybe something between 700 to 1,000 people to be asked to put on a festival. And so then we were trying to find headliners, but the way the music industry was working then, agents wouldn't allow their bands to play like an independent music festival that's just come out of the blue. So I was good friends with Shaun at the time, and we sat down, we had dinner with the people I was working with at a club called Sandhills, and we sat down and asked him would he do a solo set and play his greatest hits. And he said, no, let's reform Happy Mondays and you play guitar. That's exactly, So I went into that meeting thinking that I could get Shaun Ryder as a solo artist, but walked out of that meeting, ending up joining the band. And he told me to be his lieutenant and start pulling, the whole lot together. And then it was just, before we knew it, we were going on stage at Clapham Common in London. And then that was supposed to be a one-off. But for me, it lasted 4 years after that. So it just continued.
Was your mind pretty blown at that point, like by that proposition to kind of for you to be a part of that band, or did it feel pretty natural because you were friends with Shaun at that point?
Yeah, I guess. It was so, I was so excited about doing it,
Yeah.
and I was just, there was so much going on that you didn't have time to think that you could screw it up. So you had to, there was no room for anything to go wrong. So I was just excited and just completely honored about doing it because Shaun Ryder was one of my favorite vocalists. His style, his lyrics, everything, and then having known him for a few years before this happened, yeah, I mean, we were friends, so he put a lot of trust in me, and I trusted him a lot, and so there was a friendship there that was pretty solid at the time. So yeah, it just kept going. But I remember being really nervous, but then next thing you know, you're just doing these shows all the time and traveling around the world playing with this band. And I think the most exciting thing was when we recorded Uncle Dysfunctional, the album, and started working on that. And I got a chance to work with them in the studio properly creating, and that was always that was quite an experience, definitely.
What made that memorable for you?
Just because he was completely different to anyone I'd worked with at the time, and it was just proper. It was always spontaneous, and I remember that somebody said, I think it was Tony Wilson, that he was a poet more than a lyricist. I don't know, something like along those lines. I probably got that wrong slightly, but it felt like that because he was creating so many pictures with words, and it reminded me a little bit of some of Dylan's stuff, and just like people telling stories and creating something in your head that you can imagine, and you can, sort of, and also having that sense of humor to give you a smirk, every now and again, just go, So that was always fun, and those sessions would go on for hours. We'd record like for it would go on, and loads of stuff would happen along the way. To always, it was funny. It was always fun.
That's so cool. Tell me about Fuji Rock. What was that
Uh,
experience like?
yeah, that was one of the definitely one of the greatest experiences I think I've ever had. Fuji Rock 2006. They'd put us on after the White Stripes because the Japanese promoters wanted the Happy Monday thing to happen. So it was kind of that was really funny. So we went on after the White Stripes, and which was pretty mad at the time, and yeah, that was crazy because I think the other stages and everything had shut down. So I don't know how many people were out there, but there was a lot of people. It was like, you know, when you've got lights going across the audience, and then you just can't see the end of it. So that was pretty mad. And then the following year we played in the daytime, which was a complete different experience because we played in 2006 and 2007. But that was really cool. That was great as well. I always loved going to Japan, but Fuji Rock was just always an amazing experience. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Coachella, you played Coachella. I'm sure that's a completely different experience than than Fuji Rock.
yeah, yeah. And again, actually, I always probably look at that gig being one of my best guitar playing gigs for some reason. You know, it just felt so. I suppose everything just kind of just worked, and it felt so easy to play. It was kind of like, I don't know. I just felt very natural at that show, and I fell in love with California on that trip. That's when I
Yeah.
kind of really, I was living in London, complete different lifestyle, and I had some time off, met some great people, and just, I just loved it. And then a year later, I was, in the States basically. So
Have you played shows in the Bay Area?
yes, we played. I played some solo shows there in 2000, probably about 2009, 2010. Oh yeah, no, we played one show with Data Rock,
Yeah.
and we were touring with them, doing a West Coast tour, and then played with I played a solo show with my drummer in would have been 2010, probably something like that, and that was it was a proper sort of gallery art event. So it was it was pretty cool, actually, if I remember correctly. It was it was a really cool thing. So but that's quite a long time ago. But Blitz Vega had like shows booked on those tours,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, so we were really excited about going up there from LA. So
Yeah.
hopefully it'll happen in the next year. I think it will. So
For sure, for sure. And how was your time with Data Rock? We had them on the program a couple of years ago. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love those
Yeah.
guys. Fred's cool. It's so funny. I've known them for years now, and we just sort of met. We met on a strange tour. We were like we're playing in Australia, and James Brown was playing, and we were kind of all his support acts basically, and just kind of met them on that tour, and we sort of remained friends. So, and then I just, they'd get me on stage to play guitar with them, dressed me in a tracksuit, which was pretty cool, and I'd kind of blag my way through one of their songs, what keys it in, okay, cool, and just so I played a few gigs with them as well, played a few guest appearances with them, which was cool. But yeah, they're great people. I love those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And so your music was also used in Shameless. Tell me about how that came about.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know really. It just ended up being. It was just on there, So it was like, oh, do you want your track in Shameless? Yeah, cool, great, cool.
That is,
Um, you know, it was yeah, it was. I think it was like a sex scene or something. It was pretty mad. I think so. I can't quite. It was something like that. But anyway, yeah. Well, I was like, yeah, cool, yeah, use it, great, fill your boots, So, so
you're like, I only let my music be used in sex scenes, so if we can,
yeah,
have that
yeah,
happen, then we're
exactly,
good.
exactly. There you go. So no, but yeah, it's been used in a few things over the years. It gets used in quite a bit of sports stuff, and yeah, yeah. I think as far as I'm sure it's been used in lots of stuff that I can't remember, but yeah, it's been in a few shows.
Yeah. When you left Happy Mondays to kind of pursue a solo career, tell me about that kind of experience for you, kind of to invest yourself in your solo music. I know you kind of see yourself as more of a songwriter over a singer sort of thing, but what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I think it was just time for me to sort of just do something different, and it it allowed me to just sort of, I suppose, express myself creatively in the way that I really felt was natural. And I, I I went through a stage where I was just really longing to play very you know straight out kind of live rock and roll kind of dirty, edgy, kind of pounding kind of tunes live, and I just sort of it was just the right thing to do at the time, and I suppose it was a good time for me to take it to California and take it to LA and just sort of play around the scene there. It was very different after doing those sort of traveling tours around the world than just hanging out in one city and playing different clubs every few weeks and just sort of being part of like a local scene again. And yeah, it was a really good time doing like South by. I remember doing that, and stuff at like, was it CMJ music conference at the time, and stuff in New York, and just generally sort of just taking it back to the basics. And then but it was a crazy time as well, because I was sort of really trying to. I wasn't trying to find my find myself, but yeah, trying to avoid saying that. But I was finding myself. I was going on a bit of a bit of a journey, and there was a lot of Happy Mondays have been like a real sort of highs and lows and madness and craziness, and I kind of assumed that this would be maybe a calmer process, but it wasn't. It was actually a little bit it was quite mad actually, those years that followed. And then um, I needed I needed to be working with someone like Andy, someone who could really sort of um, calm everything down and just take everything else, all the noise away, and just make it about the music. And so I guess that's what I was searching for all that time, all the way through that period, but didn't quite know how that would happen. And then Andy sort of decided after coming into the studio that we should start a band together. So that was the best
Yeah.
best decision.
And he kind of approached you with the whole thing. I mean, really, right? I mean, so like you saw each other at it was a Fuji Rock show that you saw each other originally, and then kind of later, right?
No, no.
Was it?
So it was actually like we met years ago, and when my band was playing in Manchester, and we had like all these people from our favorite bands coming to the show, and Andy was just really cool, really kind, just a lovely guy to meet, and really giving us like positive feedback. And then we bumped into each other. I'd known him then. We were sort of friends, and then when we played that Coachella show with Happy Mondays, he was DJing on that show. So after I think his DJ set or our set, we were just hanging out, and he was like, "Oh, if you ever want to, do a project, we should do something together." And I was like, "Oh, cool, great, Andy Rourke, and then it didn't happen for whatever reason, because then I was focused on my solo stuff. He was doing stuff, and then in 2016, it would have been, I was doing these nights in LA called Dance in a Panic, and Andy would come and DJ, and then I originally asked him to come to the studio because I had some new solo music to record. So I was stepping into the studio to do that, and I said, "Would you like to come and play some bass on a couple of tracks?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And came in, and then 2 or 3 songs in, he sort of said, "You know what, Cav, we should just start a band," And I was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that." So that was kind of how it happened. So
Yeah, it happened with Happy Mondays and with Andy kind of a little bit that it just kind of naturally kind of became a thing,
yeah,
right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was kind of, and I really needed that. I felt as if I learned so much from that period onwards, and that whole journey of finding where you are as a musician, as a writer, feeling so comfortable about expressing yourself in certain ways. And Andy was a perfect person to work with because he really knew how to encourage that and get the best out of you, and also make you feel completely comfortable in his company, and I felt I grew a lot more as a writer and a musician in that stage than I ever did, over the last few
yeah.
years. He kind of really, had a certain look, well, a certain way of looking at things that sort of rubbed off on me and really helped me a lot.
And how did his music impact you before you became friends and before you kind of built this relationship as a band? Like, how did his music with the Smiths impact you? Like, were you a fan?
Well, well, yeah. I mean, I was a huge fan of like we always had like our favorite bass players in Manchester. There was this thing, like people when we looked at Manchester, and there's all like Manny, Hooky, Andy Rourke, and there'd always be this sort of most bands I was in, there would always be this argument for whichever bassist was the best bassist. And so, I mean, I mean, a lot of his work after the Smiths as well, but just when I suppose because I was delving into stuff, I was obviously not there when the Smiths became a huge band and were still together. Basically, I wasn't really, I hadn't even seen that Guns N' Roses gig on TV yet, but um, it was like I suppose when I was going back, it was like the Stone Roses, Happy Mondays, and then see this band, the Smiths. And the first thing that jumped at me was how different the bass playing was, and how busy it was at times, but how melodical it was, and how just as if it was driving the music in a completely different way. And so years later, I mean, obviously, I was hooked. I was a huge fan of Andy's from that point onwards, and obviously the rest of the band. But Andy, knowing him after that, then that was something we talk about a lot. And the fact that he started on a fretless bass, and that's what helped him, develop his style, and just having like a sort of some messages back and forth from you know Manny, who was in the Stone Roses and who was a really close friend of Andy's, and he was like he was like Andy was the funkiest and best bass player ever to come out of Manchester. So that was his view on it, and I think I think there's definitely he was exceptional musician. Just yeah, mind blowing, really.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. And so as we wind out 2024, is it looking like all Blitz Vega for you? Are you writing your own music as well? What does this year look like for you?
So I suppose over the last couple of years, I wrote a lot of music that just wasn't right for Blitz Vega stuff. Just kind of like, again, just expressing myself and getting stuff down at home. But I guess, yeah, it's basically all focused on Blitz Vega. That's the only thing I can see at the moment is just album tour, and that's it. I can't really seem to see anything further than that at the moment. It's just that, and I
Sure.
just if we can do that, then I feel that'll kind of help make future decisions and stuff like that.
Yeah. April 26th, Northern Gentleman is the album.
Yeah,
And so that'll be coming out. And there's other songs that didn't make it onto the album, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're
There's a
there.
few.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there might be a follow-up at some point.
I don't know. I don't know if there'll be a full album follow up. But we'd probably at least release that music, whether it's an EP or something, I don't know. We'll probably just because it's, again, songs that a few of the songs have got really powerful bass lines and stuff. So they're kind of again driven from Andy. But I'd probably have to re-record some vocals and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll get there at some point, just see what happens. But I'm sure we'll release them as
Yeah, for sure. Well, Cav, I want to thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Steve.
and for the music. I mean, the album is really cool, and it's so cool that you're even doing it because I mean, there's fans out there obviously that want to soak up everything of Blitz Vega and Andy and kind of engulf in that. And I know it's been this whole process for you too. So to be able to release it, I'm sure is going to be just this incredible feeling. So very cool.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate that, Steve. Thank you. And hopefully we'll come up, close to you at some point. So play a show up there at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be so cool to see it live for sure. So
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. And see you again at some point.
That was my interview with Cav from Blitz Vega, and that takes us to the final segment here on the program, the music news. All right, I got a couple stories to wind us out, and I'll start with the ones that I'm really excited about first. So the first is something corporate, and they've announced an out of office tour. If you have watched or listened to recent programs of Concert Pipeline, you'll know that I went down to Anaheim to see something corporate play live around New Year's Eve, and it was an incredible show. I covered some of that in recent episodes. We played some songs from the show and I talked all about that. They've announced an out of office tour, which is really cool. They're having a lot of fun with it. And the tour is coming to San Francisco at the Warfield, which is great. The tour sold out really quickly. And fortunately, I am a member of the fan club. And I should have thought about this beforehand, but this item, I'm going to go run and grab this item right here because it's really pretty exciting. And for those listening, you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you're watching on YouTube, you'll get to see. I got a signed press release of the upcoming tour that Something Corporate is doing by all members of the band. I got that through their fan club. They're just really cool. I wasn't even expecting it. I saw some other fans that had gotten them and posted them, and I submitted my information, but I figured I didn't make the cut for how quick I needed to reply or what have you. But I got that and signed by the whole band, and so I'm keeping it up on my dresser for now until I find a better place for it. But I thought that was really cool. and they did a press video, like a video to announce the tour in a whole office space type theme, where they took a copier out and smashed it and everything, and it was a lot of fun. But I'm looking forward to the show. It is in October, October 12th in at the Waterfield in San Francisco is the local show that they're doing. uh, Andrew McMahon of Something Corporate did a fan club hang also, and I got to talk to him last week about the tour. They have not announced opening support, but I got to introduce him to my son, which is pretty cool. He's met my daughter a few times, but never met my son, and and then we talked about the openers because they haven't identified as of now an opener or haven't announced one. And and I let him know. I was like, there's just so much drive to get the format back together for this tour, and he laughed a bit, but and kind of pretty much said that yeah, they can't afford the format. The format will probably not be getting back together for this tour in particular either. So keep wishing, but they're probably going to do local acts local to the areas is kind of what he told me, but they hadn't fully identified it yet, and they were going to gauge how well the show's sold before identifying supporting acts. I think there's a chance that Cartel might be supporting also the band Cartel. Uh, I don't know that for sure, but he's going to have another fan club hang tonight as of the date of this recording with the lead singer of Cartel. So it's possible it's related to that otherwise, or his cruise that he's doing later in the year. So that is some of the corporate news. They are back together and they're doing weekend show tours throughout the year because all the other guys in the band have day jobs. And so they'll do them when they can schedule them. Andrew McMahon getting back with Josh Partington, Kevin Page, Brian Ireland, and William Tell. And playing a bunch of shows. And this will probably be the last time that they do that for a while after they're done with these shows this year. So, not to be missed if you're something corporate fan. So glad I was able to get tickets to that. All right. Sublime with Rome has announced a farewell tour. With I think they might just be separating with Rome. I'm not exactly sure, but they're doing a farewell tour that's kicking off April 11th after the release of their final single, "Love Is Dangerous" on April 5th. Final farewell, self-titled Sublime with Rome album will follow later this year, and then tickets are going on sale as of this weekend, as of this recording. Rome said, "I'm beyond excited to announce our upcoming farewell tour. As we gear up to hit your city, the excitement is growing. Get ready for an epic night filled with not only the Sublime hits, but a special focus on never before heard Sublime with Rome originals. This tour is a unique opportunity to celebrate the incredible journey we've had together with our fans. Join us for an unforgettable evening as we reminisce and create lifelong memories. Let's make this farewell tour one for the books." So I'm not sure if this is just Rome leaving the band and Sublime will continue on. I mean, it feels interesting. It feels odd that Sublime will not exist in some capacity because they are so popular. They've been around for so long. They've had almost 261 million all-time streams and over 500,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. They have hits on hits. They're going to be playing Thunder Valley in Lincoln on May 31st. That's the local date to the Bay Area. So if you're interested, get your tickets to that. Okay. Let's talk about Jack Antonoff. He opened up about the magic of his success with Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey. He's the producer behind some of the biggest pop records of the past decade. Also on my wall up there from the band Fun. And he's made quite a successful career for himself. I mean, as one of the most popular producers. And earned Album of the Year nods at this year's Grammys. Midnight's ended up taking home the prize. Let's see. He did an interview with Zane Lowe on Apple Music One. He opened up about some of his most magical moments working with the anti-hero singer and summertime sadness musician. Every time we do something new, I joke, I guess we still got it because there's no reason for it to keep coming the way it does. Uh, I mean, he's had a very, very impressive career. He said there's a lot of magic there. I feel that way with Taylor. I feel that way with Lana. It's almost like the more we do, the less I expect it because I often think to myself, well, how much longer could we really keep having this spark? And I'm just grateful that it's there, and I don't know where it comes from or where it goes. But the one thing that I've noticed is that anyone who claims to know where it comes from and where it goes burns out pretty quick. So he's just focusing on doing the great work, it sounds like. So uh, he's uh, he's had a really big impact in doing work that's really popular. I'm not a fan of either of those artists. I am a fan of Jack Antonoff uh, and Bleachers, but I'll say I'm not sold. Like the newer Bleacher stuff just doesn't connect with me, and I don't know. I want it to. I want it to connect. I want to love the new like Bleachers, but their first album and even a bit of their second album, I mean, are really great albums and so, among my favorites that have been put out. I mean, that first album is brilliant, and I love it, but I haven't been wowed like that since then. So it's pretty sad. Okay, let's talk about U2. They finished their Las Vegas Sphere residency, and Bono praised an emotional Larry Mullen Jr. as he attended the penultimate U2 show. U2 wrapped up their final weekend of shows at the Sphere. Um, they performed their penultimate show, the state-of-the-art venue in the Venetian Resort after 40 shows on Friday, where their original drummer was in attendance after missing out on the historic residency as he recovers from neck surgery. Not since October 1978 have we played shows without Larry Mullen Jr., and it's only right I start by introducing the man who saved the day when Larry Mullen couldn't make it. Bono said on stage when introducing his bandmates. His name is already legend around here to people who can pronounce it. The flying while sitting in Dutchman, Bram van den Berg on drums. Then he addressed reports that the drummer might be performing with the band. The rumors that Larry will be playing with us tonight are not true, sadly, but he is here with us. And the crowd started to chant Larry. Bono continued, that is the man who pinned the note on the notice board at Mount Temple Comprehensive School all those years ago. And we are very grateful that he did and that he's here with us tonight. We wish him a speedy, speedy, speedy recovery. We love you, Larry Mullen Jr. And I just think that's pretty touching, for a band that's been around for forever and struggling without one of their bandmates to be there with them. Okay, Bruce Springsteen announced a new greatest hits album, and it's a career-spanning compilation titled "Best of Bruce Springsteen." Go figure. It's due for release on Friday, April 19th via Sony Music. You can pre-order it. The forthcoming collection captures the boss's storied 50-year recording career from 1973's Greeting from Asbury Park, New Jersey, to 2020's Letter to You. It'll boast new cover artwork shot by Eric Mayola during the Born to Run sessions and new liner notes by Eric Flanagan. The physical editions, which is 2 LPs and 1 CD, will feature 18 tracks, with the digital version arriving as an expanded 31-song package. And let's see, all the songs are there. I mean, he's got everything. He's Bruce Springsteen, right? So of course you're going to get Thunder Road, Born to Run, Dancing in the Dark, Born in the USA. Let's see, Letters to You. I mean, he's got tons of songs. And Springsteen and the E Street Band are set to embark on a UK and Ireland and European tour in May, which includes 2 nights at Wembley Stadium in London. So he's scheduled to begin his North American tour in Phoenix on March 19th, so right around the corner. And that includes a couple of dates here in San Francisco at the Chase Center, which were rescheduled from the end of last year. So March 28th, 31st, he will be at the Chase Center here in San Francisco if you want to see Bruce Springsteen. All right, and let's end it on a Dave Grohl story, as we like to do. Dave Grohl and Epiphone launched a DG335 signature model guitar. The manufacturer said the model was one of the most requested in their history. Go figure. And it's a collaboration that pays tribute to Grohl's legendary axe, which has accompanied him on tours around the world and comes in Pelham Blue, complete with a host of premium features. And I mean, it's a pretty snazzy guitar. I'll just say that. Looks pretty cool. So this is one of the most requested models. Offers exceptional guitar to players worldwide. Grohl is the latest musician to partner up with the guitar manufacturer to drop custom release. Boy Genius released their own signature guitar last month, which was adorned with personalized details from the supergroup. And Foo Fighters are set to resume their Everything or Nothing at All global stadium tour in Dallas this May. And Grohl was featured on drums in St. Vincent's gnarly new single Broken Man as well recently. So he's keeping busy. So that is our show for today. Coming up in the coming weeks, we will likely have interviews with Cinders and Charles Moonhart, among others. So keep an ear or an eye out for those interviews to come. Thank you for tuning in. Happy to be back at it with Concert Pipeline and talking to bands and sharing that content with everyone listening or watching. So for all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.